Good morning, grade 7s, and welcome to your daily lesson of mathematics brought to you by WorksheetCloud. I hope you guys are super well. I hope you're having a great week. If you're doing online or remote learning through school, then I trust that's going well. And if not, I hope you're taking hold of the opportunity we here at WorksheetCloud are giving you to stay on top of your academics through these lessons that are recorded, so you can go back and have a look at them at any time, as well as the online activities and memos that we've provided you with. Today we've got a little bit of a different theme. Today we're going to be talking about examination preparation and practice. So I'm going to go through a couple of things with you, and then we're going to go through one of WorksheetCloud's online examinations, which I've actually put up for you as your activity for today, and I've also put the memo there for you to refer to. And then, yeah, you guys feel free to use that exam as you wish. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is some preparation. Now, for me, the most important preparation starts the minute you enter a classroom. You cannot go to school for 8, 9, 10 weeks of a term, then write a test in the 11th week, and all of a sudden start working in week 9 or 10. That's just not going to cut it. You need to be on it, you need to be attentive, you need to be active in your lessons, and by active I mean, listen. There's a difference between hearing someone and listening to someone. Contribute to discussions, ask questions, give your opinion, practice your verbal reasoning, and by that I mean stand up and actually talk and give your opinion. And if you make a mistake, so what? Who cares? Learn from that mistake, and then it's very possible that you won't make that mistake in the future. So I really encourage you to listen carefully in class and actively participate. Then we're going to talk about time, and when I talk about time, I mean give yourself time to prepare. You're wasting your time if you study the night before. I would also say you're wasting your time if you study 2 nights before. Your preparation begins, as I said, the minute you enter a class on the first day of the term or the first day of the year. And I would really encourage you guys to revise your work for 10 minutes each day. There are 1,440 minutes in a day. Take 10 of those minutes, set them aside to simply reading over the maths that you've done in class. You will find that you'll remember it, it will be a lot clearer, a lot easier to understand, and you'll be a lot more confident going into an assessment. But really give yourself sufficient time to prepare for a maths assessment. Okay, the next thing is you need to find a quiet space at home or maybe in a library to study. You cannot study in front of a television. It's difficult to study in maybe in a TV room, lounge, dining room, kitchen setting where everyone else is talking. So find a quiet space where you can concentrate and not be distracted. Have a clear desk. Don't have a cluttered desk with gadgets and electronic devices or other books, clothes scattered all over the place. A messy environment to study in kind of creates a messy mind. So try keep it clean and orderly, and try find a little bit of peace and quiet for you to do your practicing and your studying. And that brings me on to practice. So it's highly encouraged to practice old maths exam papers. Quite often similar questions get repeated, perhaps the numbers change, but the style of questioning remains the same. So I'd encourage you to search through WorksheetCloud, their bank of examinations, which also come with memos, and sink your teeth into those and practice some examination style questions before you write an assessment. Then we get to the word explain, and here I would like you to try and explain your thinking to someone else. So if you're doing a little bit of maths homework or assessment preparation, then do a calculation and actually go to someone else and say, well, listen, I want to explain to you what I've done. And you'll find that through verbally explaining yourself, so that's called verbal reasoning. Verbally explaining yourself to someone else will help solidify the content that you're working through. It will help you identify areas that you maybe need to brush up. And the person you're explaining to might turn around to you and say, actually, can you just explain that a little bit better? And you'll find that through explaining it to someone else, you'll understand the work better going forward. Then we talk about study groups. Now, it's scientifically proven that if you study in a group with peers, that your preparation is actually better, and you end up doing a lot better in assessments, purely because you can bounce ideas off each other and you can learn from each other. So I would encourage you to, even if it's with one other person or two other people, form a study group, go through some papers together, go through some exercises together that you've done before. And just by being with someone else, you might get stuck on a particular concept or problem, and you can ask that person to explain it to you, and then you understand it almost immediately. So if you can study in a group, then that's going to be a lot better for you. It's important to take breaks quite regularly. There's no point in learning marathon sessions, 3, 4, 5 hours. Your brain kind of switches off. You got to train your brain to focus for certain periods of time. So work really hard, focus really hard, and concentrate for 30 to 45 minutes. Take a break, and then come back and continue with some work. But yeah, I would suggest 30 to 45 minutes of some really hard work, some good practice. Take a break, give your mind a rest, and then go hit those books again. The last one I want to talk to you about is diet. And believe it or not, your diet plays a massive role in your exam preparation. If you're feeding yourself junk food, loads of sugar, then your brain is not going to be primed to absorb information. Okay, it's going to be short-circuiting. It's going to be going a little bit crazy. So stay off the fizzy drinks, stay off the sweets and chocolates and junk food, and try eat a little bit healthier. Drink loads of water, and that'll keep you fresh. But yeah, the last thing you want is to start preparing for an assessment and your brain's not in the right space to absorb the information that you're putting so much effort into studying. So diet is really important. Okay, so then I thought it might be a good idea to talk to you about things that you should do on the day or could do on the day. And remember, I could have listed a load of more things here, but these are some things that I think are important. So number one, you need to be in control. And by that, I mean, you need to wake up on your terms. So I would suggest you set an alarm that obviously will go off, and you wake up at that time. Don't rely on someone else to wake you up. Okay, so plan your day. Okay, I'm going to wake up at 6:30, and you wake up, everything's ready for you to begin the day. And I think you'll find it's a lot better than if someone else came into your room and said, wake up, you're running late, and all of a sudden your day's thrown out because now it's panic, I'm late, I'm going to be late for my test, and you're anxious. It's not going to be a pleasant day to write a test. So be in control and wake up on your terms. I would highly encourage you to do a little bit of exercise before you write an assessment. Now, I'm not saying go for a 10-kilometer run or anything, but 7 minutes is a really good number to hit. There's actually an app you can get called 7-Minute Workout, and that's 7 minutes of some really high intensity exercise. Get the blood flowing. Obviously the blood carries oxygen and glucose to the brain, which the brain requires to function. Makes you alert, gets rid of some unwanted energy, takes the edge off, and actually eases you into your academic day quite nicely. So if you can do a bit of exercise in the morning, then I would highly recommend that to be a place to start. Very important to have a breakfast. The last thing you want to do is go into an assessment being hungry. You're starving your brain of crucial nutrients that it needs to, needs energy to do all the work. So a really good breakfast is really important. And when I say a really good breakfast, I don't mean a massive breakfast. I mean a healthy breakfast. Okay, so lay off all the sugar, lay off all the fruit juice. For me personally, like a protein and, tea, water, egg on toast, or, maybe some jungle oats or something along those lines, but try to stay clear of the sugary cereals and added sugar, because it's not going to be conducive for you to concentrate during your assessment. Then I talk to you about distractions. So one of the common things that I hear quite a lot from people or kids that I teach is, they get to school and children, their friends run up to them and they go, oh, do you know this? And do you know that? And how do you work this out? And that kind of throws you into a massive tailspin. And you start doubting your own preparation and your own knowledge. And then all of a sudden, you start thinking to yourself, oh, do I know that? I'm not too sure if I know what he's talking about. And again, it's not a great way for you to go into an assessment with any self-doubt. So, if your friends run up to you, just, politely say, guys, just leave me alone. I'm happy with my preparation. We can chat after the test. But try and avoid any distractions when you get to school on the day of writing an assessment. You need to be confident in your preparations, and this actually stems from giving yourself enough time to prepare, going over your work each day, practicing old papers and going over old exercises, and believing in yourself. And that belief only comes from doing the practice and doing the work that you are required to do. Okay, so you need to be really confident in your preparations and in your abilities. No cramming. So what I mean by cramming is trying to fill your brain with information with like hardly any time to spare until the assessment. So for me, it's pointless studying the morning you wake up. If you don't know the work that you're meant to know by the day you're writing the assessment, then studying on that morning is not going to help you very much. So I wouldn't cram. It just creates a lot of confusion. Staying up late the night before, I also wouldn't really recommend, because again, for me, you've left your preparations too late. So you're trying to avoid cramming. It's actually quite detrimental. Then I talk about breathing or breathe. And just the simple exercise of breathing in through your nose, holding your breath for 5 seconds, breathing out through your mouth, again holding your breath for 5 seconds before you inhale again. Go through that process about 5-6 times, or however many times you need. Slow the heart rate right down. Tell yourself that you're well prepared, you're confident, you're looking forward to writing the assessments, and it just puts you in a good frame of mind going into the test. Then I write read. So here you've been given the assessment, and I would encourage you to actually read through the entire assessment before answering the first question. Make sure you read every single question, just to give yourself an idea of what's coming. Quite often when you read through a paper, there'll be questions that you're not too sure about, but there'll also be questions that you'll recognize and questions that you know that you can answer. And that creates a bit of confidence before starting to write the paper. So read through the paper, and once you've read through the paper, then obviously you can begin. And I would encourage you to read through each question twice. Quite often we read through the question once, or even more often we read through half the question and we think we know what they're asking us to do. So it's quite a foolish act to not read through a whole question entirely before answering it, because quite often the questions ask you to do more than one thing, and when we don't read it correctly, we often miss the second or third part of the question that we are meant to do. So read. Make sure you understand what the question is asking of you. Okay, then I've got time again, and time is simply manage your time. Okay, so I normally suggest 1 mark per minute. So 3-4 mark question should take you 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, and that's a kind of a general guideline. It's not exact, but that should kind of get you through to the end of the paper. It's pointless spending 15 minutes on question 2 that you're really struggling with and you're not 100% sure of when you know how to work out question 3, 4, 5. Rather leave out question 2, go do question 3, 4, 5, and come back to question 2 at the end. If you had to struggle through question 2, takes you 10 to 15 minutes, you get to the question 3, 4, 5, which you should know, and all of a sudden there's a bit of pressure on you because you've used up 10 to 15 minutes on question 2. So if you get to a question that you don't know and it's taking you a lot of time, put it to one side, carry on, and then come back to that at the end. Okay? You don't have all day to write the test, so time is a really, really important factor. And if you don't have a clock in your classroom, then you need to have a watch so that you can keep track of exactly how much time is left. That's a really important point. Then check, check, check. So guys need to check your work. And what I used to do when I was at school is I used to write the whole paper, and my form of checking was actually just to see if I'd answered everything. I didn't actually check through all the calculations. And when I think about it, I actually try and kick myself because I lost out on a lot of marks due to silly errors, due to rushing, time constraints. I wasted time on questions and then made silly mistakes on the questions that I should have known. So check your work immediately after you've done the calculation or finished the question, okay? And it's literally checking the calculation, all right? Go through it, make sure you haven't made any silly errors. If you can do the reverse of the calculation to double check, so if it's a multiplication question, then you can divide to check. If it's a division question, you can multiply to check. But yeah, I'd really encourage you guys to check your work as thoroughly as possible. The reason I don't say check right at the end of the paper is because if you get to the end of the paper and you've written for 2 hours, you're not going to remember what you did in the first 5 minutes, okay? So for me, write question 1, check it, I'm happy with it, I don't ever have to look at it again, put it to one side. Question 2, do it, check it, happy with it, I don't have to go back. So when you get to the end of the paper, you're at the end. You don't now have to go all the way back to the beginning and check through the paper again. Okay, so those are a few guidelines for preparation and for writing the assessment on the day. But ultimately, it's all about preparing regularly and consistently. I'm afraid that if you fail to do that, then you're not giving yourself a good chance. There's a great saying that says, if you fail to prepare, then you must be prepared to fail. And I would encourage you guys not to have to live by that mantra. Here are your first 2 questions from WorksheetCloud.com's question sheet. Question number 1, true or false? The year 1900 was a leap year. So the very first thing that we'd all think about is, okay, there's a leap year every 4 years. Is 1900, 1900, is it divisible by 4? And yes, it is divisible by 4. Okay, it's divisible by 475 times. So if you do 1900 divided by 4, you get 475. However, if it's a centurial year, so centurial year is a year that's divisible by 100. So 100 goes into 1900 or 1900 19 times. Then for it to also be a leap year, it must be divisible by 400. Okay, so 1900, while it is divisible by 4, it's not divisible by 400. Okay, so therefore 1900 was not a leap year, and that's going to be false. Okay, so if it's a centurial year, I'm just going to explain that again because it's not very often that you hear about that. If it's a centurial year, so it's divisible by 100, then for it to also be a leap year, it must be divisible by 400. Okay, that only applies for centurial years. Question number 2 is from 2D shapes. The diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular to each other. And what I've done is I've included a picture of a rhombus on the bottom left corner there. And remember, perpendicular means that the diagonals intersect at 90 degrees. Okay, and you can see there's a little red triangle in the where the diagonals intersect, and that means it's a 90-degree angle. So yes, the diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular to each other. That is also true. Okay, right, let's move on to question number 3. A rectangle with a length of 8 centimeters has an area of 56 centimeters squared. The breadth of the rectangle will be 1, and the perimeter of the rectangle will be the answer for number 2. So you have a list of possible answers. So we know that a rectangle, opposite sides are equal. So if the length is 8 centimeters and the area is 56 centimeters squared, I know that the area of a rectangle is length times breadth. So 8 multiplied by what gives me 56? That's correct. 7. So there's the 7 centimeters. That's the answer for number 1. And now that I have 7 centimeters for the breadth, I can work out the perimeter because I know that opposite sides are equal. So 8 plus 7 is 15. Multiply that by 2 and you're going to get 30 centimeters. Alternatively, you can go 8 plus 8 is 16, plus 7 and 7, which is 14. 16 and 14 also give you 30 centimeters. Okay, so there's a question on perimeter, which we've actually just done. Question number 4 is a multiple choice question. The watt of 35 is 145. So here we're looking to know or looking to see whether you understand complements and supplements. And we recently did supplementary angles that add up to 180. So the supplement of 35 is 145 because 145 plus 35 is 180. And supplementary angles add up to 180. Remember that complementary angles add up to 90. Right, question 5. An improper fraction is one in which the numerator is bigger. So all we do there is we write the word bigger or larger. Okay, so the most important thing there is to realize that the numerator, which is the top number, is larger than the denominator. Then for question 6, they give us a list of numbers starting -6, 0, -7, 4, 7, and -11. And they want to know what is the correct descending order for this list. Okay, so descending means biggest to smallest. So your biggest number there is going to be +7. And then you're going to go to 4, then to 0, then to -6, then to -7, then to -11. So that's going to be D. Okay. Now, just a reminder that obviously positive numbers are bigger than negative numbers. Negative numbers have a minus sign in front of them. Positive numbers have a plus sign in front of them. And if you think about it like a temperature, -11 degrees Celsius is very cold. It's the coldest out of what all those other numbers would be in temperature. So that kind of tells you which is the lowest number. Okay, so make sure you understand integers and positive and negative numbers. And the further away a number is from 0, when you go to the left of 0, so into negative numbers, then the smaller it is. Question 7. Give the missing term for each of the following sequences. Okay, so here in sequence number 1, you need to recognize that it's odd numbers and that the odd numbers go up in 2s. So 5, 7, 9, 11, then you would have 13. The second sequence, -2, -4, -6, your number there needs to be -8. All right, so -8, you can see it's going down. It's going down 2. That last number there should be -10. So -2, -4, -6, -8, -10, -12. Then the third sequence, 106, 102, you can see it's going down 4 places, and that's going to be 98. Okay. Question 8, please fill in the blanks. So here we're looking at measurement, and do you know how to convert between meters, kilometers, millimeters, centimeters, etc.? So remember when we did this lesson, we said we were going to convert all the measurements to the same amount. So you can choose what you want to convert it into. Just notice that for number 1, they want the answer in meters. Okay, so I'm actually going to convert it into meters. So it's 1,345 meters for 1,345 kilometers. You've already got the 6,789 meters. Now we need to convert 10,123 millimeters into meters. And if you go back to the lesson that we did on measurement, I suggested that you first go from millimeters to centimeters, because that's simply dividing by 10, okay? And then to get from centimeters to meters, you divide by 100. Okay, so you're dividing by 10, and then you're dividing by 100. So all in all, you're dividing by 1,000, okay? And that's going to give you 10 meters, all right, and 123 centimeters. Now notice how I've written it above 1,345 and 6,789 is because I'm trying to keep them in the correct columns, all right? So if you add up all those numbers, okay, and we can add them up, that's going to be a comma. So you know that you're going to have 3, 2, 1 because none of the others have centimeters, okay? Commas in that place, 5 and 9 is 4. That's going to be 14, carry the 1. That's going to be 11, carry the 1. And that's going to be 8. And you can see that the first option there is 8,144 meters and 123 centimeters. So 8,144,123. So that would be your first answer. And then for your second answer, they've asked you a similar question where you need to convert, but this time into kilometers. So you've already got 2,3 kilometers. 34,000 meters is going to be 34 kilometers and 400 meters, so 34,4 kilometers. Now you've got 555,000 millimeters. So we need to convert. So if we write that 555,000 millimeters, I would first divide by 10. So we take off a 0 to get to centimeters. Then to get from centimeters to meters, we need to divide by 100. So we take off those 2 zeros. Okay. And now that's 555 meters, which we know in kilometers, if we divide by 1,000, is 0,555. So we need to add that onto there. Okay. And now we need to just sort of add those up. And we just need to carry. And I'm hoping that 37,255 is in the answers. And there it is, slap bang in the middle. And that's your answer for number 2, 37,255 kilometers. Number 9, the decimal number is equal to the common fraction 11 over 20. So if I have 11 over 20, I know that to convert to a decimal, I need my denominator to be 10, 100, or 1,000, and I need to get to 10, 100, or 1,000 by multiplying. So I can see I can multiply 20 by 5 to get 100. Then I can multiply 11 by 5 to get 55. Now how many times does 100 go into 55? 0. What's left over? The numerator 5. Just remember that we can check however many zeros there are in the denominator, there are 2. That's how many numbers there need to be after the decimal place in the decimal fraction. So we know that we should be correct. Okay, question 10 is an of sum in fractions. There are 480 sweets in a jar and 7/12 of them are sour worms. If 3/5 of the rest are fruit juice, there will be how many fruit juice? So I need to go work out how many sour worms there are. 7/12, we know of means multiply, and we can write 480 over 1 so that we're working with 2 fractions. Now you should remember when we did fractions and multiplication of fractions, I mentioned that you could simplify diagonally, because if you don't simplify diagonally, you're going to have to say 7 times 480 divided by 12 times 1. The numbers get quite big, the calculations can get tricky, you can make careless errors. So I know that 12 goes into 48 4 times, so 12 must go into 480 40 times, okay, and then I've got 7 multiplied by 40, and that equals 280. So 280 of the sweets are sour worms. That means I've got 200 sweets left over. I'm going to put SW for sour worms, okay? So 3/5 of the rest are fruit juice. So 3/5 of 200 are fruit juice. So now I need to go work out 3/5 of 200. So notice that there's a second part to this question, actually a third part. So first we worked out 7/12 of 480, then we subtracted that from 480, which left us with the 200, and now I need to go work out 3/5 of 200. So that's the third part of the question, and we know that 5 goes into 5 once and into 240 times. So 3 times 40 is 120. So there are 120 fruit juice. Okay, so notice that that's for 4 marks. So always a good idea to look at the mark allocation and figure out, like, okay, they're not going to ask me just to do one of multiplication sum for 4 marks. They're going to expect me to do something else. So it would be 1 mark for working out 7/12 of 480, 1 mark for subtracting the 280 from the 480 to get 200, and then another mark for working out 3/5 of 200, and a 4th mark for getting it right. Okay, so just be aware of mark allocation. If there's normally more than 2 marks, then you normally need to do more than 1 or 2 things. Okay, so that's just a little bit of a guideline for you. Right, question 11 is a multiple choice question. And they want to know what the prime factors of 81 are. So you would have remembered we did prime factor decomposition, where you had the ladder method or the tree method. So I'm going to show you the ladder method. 3 goes into 81. Sorry, not 2. 3 goes into 81, and I know 3 goes into 81 because of my divisibility rules that I know. 8 plus 1 is 9. 9 can be divided by 3, so that means 81 can be divided by 3. Okay. And that's 27. 3 goes into 27 9 times. 3 goes into 9 3 times. And 3 goes into 3 once. So I know that my prime factors are 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, which equals 3 to the power of 4. And you can see that A would be your choice for question 11, right? So the tree method, if I can just go through that quickly, if you prefer the tree method, so you would have 81 3 times, 27 3 times, 9, 3, and 3. And there you can see you've got 4. 3 multiplied by itself 4 times, it gives you the same answer in A. So for question 12, I've just put a little bit of writing up on the screen just to save some time. So they want to know what 0.367 meters squared is in millimeters squared. So we know that 1 meter squared is 1 meter times 1 meter, which is 100 centimeters times 100 centimeters, which if I convert to millimeters is 1,000 millimeters times 1,000 millimeters, 1,000 millimeters in a meter, okay? So that means that in 1 meter squared, I've got 1 million millimeters, all right? So to get from 0.367 meters squared to millimeters squared, I need to multiply the 0.367 by the 1 million, okay? And then that's going to give me 367,000 millimeters squared. Okay, so it's important there not to simply multiply by 1,000, because when we convert to meters to millimeters, there's 1,000 millimeters in a meter. It's important to recognize the meter squared sign means 1,000 millimeters times 1,000 millimeters, which means there's 1 million millimeters squared in a meter squared. And then multiply the 0.367 by 1 million, and then that gives you 367,000. That is quite a tricky one to remember, and I would encourage you to go back to the lesson on measurement just to go through the conversions when it comes to square units of measurement. And that examination practice for today. I'm conscious of time. I don't want to keep you guys over 40 minutes, and we're getting close to that already. So thanks very much for your attention and your concentration. I will continue with this examination practice tomorrow, and we'll finish off this paper. Please be reminded that the question paper I've just gone through along with the memo are on your online activities today. So go over and practice them again, make sure you understand them, go over the preparation tips and techniques I spoke about at the beginning, and try implement them into your daily routine. And apart from that, keep super well and safe. Get out in the mornings between 6 and 9. A little bit of exercise doesn't do any harm. And I look forward to going through the rest of the paper with you guys tomorrow. All the best, grade 7s. Cheers.